So you're thinking about starting a family, and you've probably asked yourself, of all the lifestyle changes out there, which ones actually make a difference? Well, today, we're going to cut right through all that noise. We're diving deep into a huge new scientific review to figure out what really, truly works.
All right, let's just get right to it. This is the big question, isn't it? You want to do everything you possibly can to get ready for a healthy pregnancy. But does changing up your diet and exercise beforehand actually move the needle when it comes to getting pregnant and having a healthy baby?
I mean, you can go online right now and find a million different opinions. Eat this, don't eat that, try this workout, you absolutely need that supplement. It is completely overwhelming. So you know what? We're going to ignore all of that and go straight to the hard evidence to see what a massive look at all the science has to say.
So before we jump into the answers, let's just quickly talk about why this is such an important question for scientists to be asking in the first place.
Well, from a health perspective, this is a really big deal. The study makes it clear that a lot of women have lifestyle habits that are known risk factors for things like infertility or complications during pregnancy. But here's the crucial part. These risks are modifiable. They're things we can actually change. And that, right there, is a massive opportunity to improve the health of both mom and baby.
Okay, so if you want real, solid answers, you need a really powerful way to find them. So how did these researchers go about hunting for the best evidence that's out there?
They used a method called a meta-analysis. Now, instead of just trusting one single study, this approach pools together the data from many different high-quality studies. It gives us a much stronger, much more reliable, big-picture view of what's really going on.
And believe me, this whole process was incredibly thorough. They didn't just cherry-pick a few studies they liked. Nope. They built a whole system to sift through a mountain of research just to find the absolute best, most reliable evidence available.
It all kicked off with a huge search that pulled up nearly 19,000 potential studies. I mean, just imagine that for a second. That's the mountain of information they started with, and from there, the real work of filtering began. They had to screen for quality, for relevance, for the right kind of study design. And after all that intense filtering, they were left with just 24 of the most solid, high-quality studies on this topic. Think about that. They distilled all that information from thousands and thousands of papers down to the very best of the best. And get this, those 24 studies included data from almost 8,000 women. That is a huge sample size, which gives us real confidence in what they found. So this isn't based on some small niche group. It's a massive combined scientific effort.
Okay, so they've gathered all the best data. So what do they find? Well, this is where things get really interesting and maybe a little unexpected.
Let's start with the two biggest things everyone is hoping for: a clinical pregnancy, which is one that's confirmed by a doctor, and of course, a live birth. Well, after combining all the data from all the different lifestyle programs, the researchers found no statistically significant improvement. The odds were pretty much the same as for women who just got standard care.
Now, I know what you're thinking. That might sound a little discouraging, but hang on a second. That top-level number absolutely does not tell the whole story. We've got to dig a little deeper here. Because when we look at other really important health markers, the picture totally changes. The lifestyle programs were actually very successful at helping women improve their underlying health. Specifically, they helped them reduce their weight and lower their fasting glucose levels, which is just a key way to measure how well your body is managing sugar.
And we're not talking about a tiny effect here. On average, women in these programs lost nearly 4 kilograms. That's about 8.5 pounds. And they saw a significant drop in their fasting glucose. That's a fantastic sign of better metabolic health. So the interventions did work, just maybe not on the main outcomes everyone was expecting at first glance.
So, this brings us to the next obvious question, right? If some things clearly worked to improve health, what were the specific ingredients for that success? What was it that separated a really effective program from one that didn't do much at all?
Well, it turns out intensity really matters. A lot. When the researchers looked closer, they saw that short-term programs, the ones with fewer than 10 sessions, had basically no effect. But the programs that were more intensive, with 10 or more sessions, they more than doubled the odds of a clinical pregnancy. And check this out. One of the single most effective techniques was something the researchers call adding objects to the environment. What does that mean? It means literally giving people the tools they need to succeed. Things like providing healthy food, supplying exercise equipment, or even just giving them a scale or a pedometer to track their progress.
And here is another absolutely crucial point. You have to be intentional. The programs that didn't have a specific weight loss goal, they saw very little change. But the programs that made weight loss an explicit stated aim, they saw over 5 times the amount of weight loss. The goal itself was a key driver of success.
And you'll find this interesting, especially in our world of apps and remote everything. The study found that programs done purely face-to-face led to significantly more weight loss than the ones that mixed in technology. It seems that personal connection is still incredibly powerful.
So, okay, we've dug through a ton of data here. What are the big takeaways? What does all of this actually mean for someone out there planning a family?
All right, let's wrap this all up. First, a casual, do-it-yourself approach probably isn't enough. Intensive and structured programs seem to be what makes a real difference. Second, you have to set specific goals, like weight loss, if you really want to see changes. Third, getting tangible support, the actual tools and resources, can be a total game changer. And finally, even if that direct link to live birth rates isn't totally proven across the board yet, these interventions are undeniably effective at improving your overall metabolic health. And that is a fantastic foundation for any pregnancy.
Now, it is also super important to be responsible with this information. The study authors themselves are quick to add a note of caution. These specific findings about what works best come from looking at smaller subgroups, which is a bit more exploratory. So think of them as strong clues, not final absolute proof. They really just highlight where future research needs to focus its attention.
And all of that leaves us with a really hopeful, forward-looking question. This research gives us a powerful roadmap. It doesn't just tell us that preconception health matters. It gives us specific, evidence-based clues on how to support it effectively. So the challenge for all of us now is to build on this knowledge and create a future where every family gets the healthiest possible start.